What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Taking the Pin. And today we are going to be discussing some of the more unfortunate side effects of the wrestling ring, and that is injuries. Of course, there's quite a few names now that have gone on the shelf or on the sidelines for a little bit longer. Of course, over the weekend on Saturday night's main event, we had Seth potentially re-injuring the knee that he infamously went out 10 years or so ago, which is mad to think that's nearly 10 years ago now. But him obviously having a bit of a lengthy layoff. Of course, you've got Adam Cole, who was in the ring at All In with the mic, telling us that he may well be done for good because of his issues. You've obviously got Liv, who got a shoulder dislocation and a totally innocuous bump when she was trying to protect herself, managed to dislodge her shoulder. You've got Kevin Owens, who's out with his neck injury at the moment and potentially may or may not come back. And yeah, just sort of discussing wrestling as a whole and whether or not it's in a bit of an injury crisis at the moment and whether it's just one of those things or if this is maybe a tale of things to come. Of course, whoever it is that gets injured or is delayed in terms of getting back to the ring, of course, we want them to be healthy first and foremost. It's not necessarily about the wrestlers coming back. It's about the human beings involved. And I think nothing is more of a signal of that than obviously what we've seen with Kevin Owens and what we've seen with Adam Cole, of course, in the ring and their respective promos or speeches or whatever you want to call it, or their opening ups of telling us what's going on. Because again, I think you have to be an absolute stone not to feel some emotion for those guys, and obviously them telling us that maybe the thing they love isn't going to be something that they continue to do in the foreseeable future or ever again, really, in their scenarios potentially. So yeah, Bragster, obviously today we're going to discuss those things. Of course, I think we'll start with Adam Cole because again that's kind of the one that's, I know Seth's is pretty shocking because it was out the blue, but again, seeing Adam Cole in that way and seeing and hearing the words he was speaking, it was obviously very shocking to hear and obviously see what he's going through at the minute.
Yeah, it's horrible. Like I think that it's something you never want to see in general. It just almost gives us wrestling PTSD to the speeches that we've seen from the likes of Paige, Adam Copeland or Edge, Daniel Bryan, all in the past. It's one of those things that is really tough to hear, especially on such a big show. And it's one of those where, he literally wrestled a few days before and then just took a nasty hit and then got checked and it was like, no, this is worse. And it's one of those where, again, it just seems to be happening on the most innocuous of things that just are so ordinary, which is then why it's hard to be like, wrestling companies need to be more careful because it's happening on the weirdest of things, and it's one of those where is that just the effects of working for that many years, and maybe that's always been the effect and we've just not noticed because doctors and precautions have gone through the roof to ensure that people live long happy lives. And we know from years and years gone by that wrestlers have issues in their later years. So it's really difficult because as a fan, and especially as a huge fan of Adam Cole, it's really difficult to not want him to come back into the ring. But when you have during his AEW run just little things, just like issue after issue after issue, and that on, as I said, the most innocuous of things, it's really difficult as a fan to be like, oh yeah, come back, because how can you wish for someone to come back when their body is just telling them no? Because at the end of the day, it's more of a case of I want wrestlers to go out on their own terms, even if their body is giving up. John Cena, has said he would only stop if he felt like his body was just not going to be able to do it anymore. So we've gotten to this point now but he's still going out on his own terms.
Yeah.
You know, AJ Styles, I think, is nearing the end of his. You know, he signed a 1-year extension or whatever. I think we're going to see the end of AJ Styles in the next couple of years. Kurt Angle went out on his own terms. You know, I want to see that more. Goldberg, literally this weekend, went out on his own terms.
Yeah.
I want to see more of that, of people going out on their own terms rather than being forced out like we've seen over and over and over again. And like the concern is that this is what we're in July. We're 7 months into the month, and we've already listed four big injuries, 2 of which saying that they may never come back to the ring. Like, that's just heartbreaking. You know, and it's really hard to tell what the issue is, or if there's an issue and it's just a pure and utter coincidence. But right now, wrestling's going through a bit of a crisis because of it.
Yeah, I think I don't really remember many times when we've had that many big names out at the same time. The only time I can really remember was watching I think it was WrestleMania 31.
31 or 32, yeah.
So, like I mentioned before, with Seth going out with his knee the first time, that was very much going to be Seth versus Roman, the big Mania main event we all thought we were going to get, and we still haven't got to this point 10 years later. That's kind of the one I remember where there were a lot of injuries, and that kind of curtailed a lot of things going into Mania. Of course, it's hard for me to say it's a crisis because, again, wrestling is the beast that it is. Like, people are going to get hurt, people are going to have injuries, people are going to have little niggles that'll take them out or maybe hamper them in some way. Not quite to the extent that maybe Dominic Mysterio is with his sick note at the minute, but, you know, like, there are going to be, it comes part and parcel of it. Like everyone says in the wrestling sphere, this isn't ballet. Yeah. Injuries happen, people get hurt. It isn't something for people to try at home. I think what's really unfortunate is that you've had, really, in the space of, 2-3 weeks since Liv did her shoulder, you've had that. Then you've had Seth have what may well be a totally innocuous flip land on his leg, and then his knees gave up on him. And you've had things like that happen, and it just feels like 2 totally innocuous things that, like, shouldn't cause the reaction they've got from their bodies. But like you said before, touched upon before, because they've done it for so long and they've done it so frequently, eventually the wall is going to hit and something has to give. And what I'm hoping more than anything is that by everyone being able to take some time off of the people that have got injured specifically, that they'll be able to almost recuperate some of that damage that they've obviously done to themselves, and then they'll be not necessarily brand new, but they'll be able to come back and at least have another stint of their careers that they want to have, not necessarily what the audience wants to have. It's about them being able to go out and do what they want to do, like you say, finish it on their own terms, and basically take it from there. The ones that I always struggle with, and again, the 2 that I struggle with the most in terms of like seeing the speeches and sort of, you know, having that moment of realization that they're not gonna be around anymore, potentially, was the Daniel Bryan one is probably the biggest one, because everyone knew he had issues, but I until they say it, no one really understands until they say it how serious the issues are, and his was a big shock to me at the time. And then I think Kevin Owens hit me quite a lot, because KO is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Like, it goes without saying. Whether he's in a title shot or he's in the mid card doing something, or he's, you know, you just see him in the background doing something. Whatever it is he's doing, I always find him incredibly entertaining, and I've said that since day one we've done this as a channel together, and seeing him potentially have to give up what he has done for years on end, and it has made him a livelihood, and he's been able to make his family comfortable doing something that he loves.
Yeah,
is incredibly heartbreaking to see. And
yeah.
uh, I just hope we get to a point where this isn't a thing anymore. But I don't feel like we ever truly can because of what
No,
wrestling is.
no. And it's one of those you see injuries in all sports. We're two very big football fans.
Mm.
You see huge injuries all the time, and it's just you hope it doesn't happen to your favorite people or the big stars.
Mm.
Um, I honestly think that the only solution to this, because you're not going to stop injuries, the only solution is building up bigger rosters.
Mm-hmm.
And not in the sense of sign more people, because there's more than enough, but as you can tell from the media reaction after, especially after Seth's injury, was they like who's going to step into that,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously rumor and innuendo is that it's Punk that's sort of stepped into that role, and that maybe it was going to be Gunther versus Seth at SummerSlam or whatever. I don't truly believe. I still believe that maybe it was always going to be Punk and Gunther, but maybe Seth was going to cash in then,
Yeah.
as sort of being this big sort of moment where Punk maybe wins the title and then Seth takes it straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Was almost what we were sort of thinking might happen. But they do have an issue of they have too many people who possibly are there for a while. WWE have had that issue for years. There's a reason everyone hated Charlotte Flair and John Cena as much as they did during their peaks, because it's very much like here's one man who runs the show. I mean, WWE are in a very unfortunate position of they built the women's division around Liv so Liv has an amazing year and she got injured, and then Seth similarly, and he's gotten injured. So it couldn't have been any worse, and that is a pure and utter coincidence. But I do believe that giving people those extra breaks does help, because we've got to remember also it's not just
The shows.
the shows. They've got house shows as
Yeah.
well that are going on at the same time, and we don't know really who's wrestling on those unless you're really keeping up and you're an absolute nerd of a super fan.
Yeah.
And you're keeping up with who's on what shows, but naturally they try and put as many of the stars on as possible to greet the crowd. And even if they're not on the main TV shows, you have dark matches where they put, how many times have we seen the likes of Jay and Punk wrestle on the dark matches to pop the crowds and stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
So, we've got to remember that it's also all of those that are going on. And I think that it's beneficial there to have those moments where, for example, we haven't seen Bianca in like 3 months, obviously until recently.
Yeah.
Which, been away from Mania, after Mania, give them a break, and I feel like unless you're in the main title picture, which I know those two were, but there's loads of other issues obviously in general, but it's unless you are the champions per se, those breaks should be beneficial and should be allowed to happen.
Yeah.
And I know WWE have gotten so much better at that, and that's why it's not a criticism. But that's the only solution almost as a fan you can think of.
Yeah.
Is to have more people in those prime roles, and you just give people those breaks.
Yeah.
One of the best eras that I remember was the Ruthless Aggression era, and the amount of stars when you look at the posters and stuff, and there were people on those that were often just given little breaks here and there to try and help to help out as best they can, and it's a tough one because, as you said, it's one of those that you feel like it cannot be helped. But right now in wrestling, there's a genuine concern. We've just come out of All In. It seems like, other than Adam Cole, despite the chaos that was that show, people have managed to get past it and be fine. But we're heading into SummerSlam when it comes to WWE, and we know they're going to go big because it's the first 2-night one. So you just hope that everything's going to be okay and everyone's going to come out. But I feel like as fans, I don't know about you, but you just get a bit nervous right now watching matches, knowing that these injuries are going on, all at the same time. It's like one of those things where they're really good at their jobs. They're absolutely fine. But with everything going on, you get the sense of like, oh, please, no one else.
Yeah. No,
And
I get what you mean. I think it's with the yeah, I agree with that. I think like I don't know if I necessarily watch stuff and I think, oh, please not another one. I think it's just like afterwards I kind of go, okay, there's kind of like a relief that comes off me. It's like, oh, everyone was okay. And then once I have like a run of a few shows where everything's okay, I kind of go back into the normal watching of it. What I would say is, after hearing the Kevin Owens news and watching that Cody KO match back at the Rumble with the ladder match, seeing some of them spots, I'm thinking, what in God's green earth is that man doing? Like, that is insane. That because again, there's taken bumps, there's taken riskier bumps, but then there's just flat out, this is going to hurt whether you take it well or not.
Yeah.
And that was one of those matches. And again, Elimination Chamber is another one of those matches. Money in the Bank with all the ladder spots and tables and things that they do in that. Like, so yeah, it's usually when it's like normal shows, it's not too bad. But like if I start seeing like the ladders coming out and the tables, I'm thinking, okay, please let's everyone just get out of this in one piece and we can move on. But yeah, I think. Sorry, go on.
No, I'm just thinking maybe as fans, obviously, sat here as fans, and there'll be people watching this video thinking the same as what we're thinking. But maybe as fans, we just have to accept that wrestling has gotten way more dangerous, necessarily. Like, way more dangerous in a certain aspect. Obviously, we know chair shots to the head and stuff no longer happen. But in terms of the intensity of matches, has increased. Of like normal singles matches 20 years ago used to just be very rather slow, methodical. Now every single match is go, go, go. Let's put on the best match of the night, which is amazing. Which is what creates the weekly shows being so good. It's what creates indie wrestling being so good. But maybe as fans nowadays, we have to accept wrestlers' careers won't go on till 50 anymore. We won't see another Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, John Cena, all edging or past 50. Another R-Truth who's like 72 at this point. Where his childhood hero is still John Cena. But maybe we have to accept that is gone now in wrestling. Maybe the cap rather than the cap being 50, it's now 40.
Yeah.
Maybe we have to accept that wrestlers will be retiring at the age of 38 to 42 rather than 48 to 52 per se. Maybe because of the intensity, we have to accept as fans, and maybe wrestlers themselves have to accept that might be the new norm, and that maybe because of the intensity of every match going up, where you don't get the classic, let's just hold a headlock for a while, the crowd are going to cheer us anyway, type matches just don't happen anymore. Yeah. So I wonder whether we just have to accept it as fans, and people as wrestlers have to accept that careers will no longer last as long as they used to back in the day.
Yeah, I think there has to be a certain element of that. I would argue as well, though, you've got people like AJ Styles, who sort of brought in about that era of the quicker wrestling match or the more intensity and things like that. And he's been doing this for well over 20 years and has basically looked after himself to the umpteenth degree and really didn't have that many injuries. I know he had a bit of on-off period the past couple of years, but not really had that many major layoffs. And again, people can let me know if I'm wrong about that in the comments. But there is a way of doing it where you can be safe and you can have a lengthy career. I think, especially with the Seth and Liv stuff, it's just very unlucky. It just feels like if you are doing all the right things, then hopefully you will get the benefits of that. But there are times where an innocuous landing, a little bit of a contact at the just the wrong spot or slightly off timing on something, and it will have damage to it. But I do agree with the sentiment of, if we even just look at 2010 to 2020, as each year went by, the intensity and the quickness and the spots and the matches themselves all went up several levels in terms of the intensity. And I always remember Shawn Michaels' Undertaker talking about how if it was a random match on SmackDown or Raw, they didn't put 100% into it. Not necessarily that they weren't wrestling 100%, but they weren't putting every single fiber of being into the match, because they would save that for the pay-per-views, because those were the biggest spots, those were the biggest moments. That's when it had to count. And I feel like the era that we're in has very much moved away from that, and it's now every show has to count, every show has to have something. We were talking about it the other week. I know we were complaining about the Slim Jim table.
Yes.
But every show has table spots. Every show has something going on the outside of the ring. It's, there's always something going on, which is a little bit extra to what a normal wrestling match is. And I feel like maybe we're getting to a point, like you say, where that's obviously going to catch up with people, and we've not really had the era of it catching up to people yet. And I feel like if we keep going this route, of course the matches are fantastic to watch, there's no debate about that, but is that going to come at a price of people are going to have shorter careers, people aren't going to get, like you say, to their 50s? And of course medical advances will change things, and something will come along where they'll basically be able to probably regenerate themselves like the Doctor or something, and then they'll be basically brand new again and have another 20 years in like 40 years time or something. But it, like, Seth is one of those guys that has to wrestle at 100 miles per hour. He has had wrestling injuries aplenty over his career. People will maybe argue he's probably only got a handful of years left, if that, if his body keeps giving up on him. Will Ospreay has talked about it over the years, that he wrestled a very, I will call it, crazy and insane flight or fight style that was basically an injury a match if he wasn't careful. And he's talked about that he's had to change his way of doing it because his body just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like these wrestlers that will wrestle that type, of course, you've got people like Roman Reigns who have that more slow, methodical way of doing it. He'll be able to probably go much longer than these other guys will, because he works a certain style that works for him, and he's able to look after himself and not cause too much damage. And I always think of that infamous promo on, it was between Miz and Bryan on the post-show SmackDown show, Smack Talks or something.
Talking Smack.
Talking Smack, that's it. And basically, Miz was making the point that, like, yes, do I have the craziest matches every single night? No. But I've wrestled for 15 years consistently without injuries because I've wrestled this way, and it's kept me in my job, and I've not had to sit on the sidelines for years on end. And of course, at that point, Bryan had only just recently retired, so everything was still very raw for him. But he was another one who wrestled a crazy style, high-flying, high-risk style, which was amazing to watch, but did so much more damage than people ever could possibly know. So, I think there has to be a bit of a balance. I think that's with everything. You can't go back to that slow, methodical style all the time, because it just won't be entertaining to watch. But you also can't have this every single match, everything's on the wire, people are flying everywhere, spots are being done. It's just not realistic for people to maintain a long career doing that and keeping themselves healthy enough for the long term. That's my take on it, basically. Okay. Well, after that very serious conversation, which isn't very normal for us, I don't like it when we get too serious, but I think we both felt it was necessary to talk about that. I think that's where we'll leave it there, folks. Obviously, let us know what you think down in the comments below. Of course, all our best wishes go out to the wrestlers we've talked about, and obviously anyone who is on the sidelines at the moment and maybe suffering with any injuries that they may be dealing with because of wrestling. Of course, we hope the best in terms of your recoveries. And if you want to see more wrestling content, hit that subscribe button. Let us know what you think down in the comments, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon.